But he's not. This TikToker knocked out influencers, boxers, and MMA fighters. One of the most dangerous knockout artists in boxing today, surprisingly. A TikToker. But how does he manage to defeat undefeated fighters and UFC legends like Tony Ferguson? Let's start from the very beginning. Salt PAPI, or Nathaniel Bustamante, was born on February 24, 1994 in Candelaria, Philippines. At the age of 14, his family moved to London, England, where he finished his education while practicing dance as a hobby. Interestingly, his profession back then was the complete opposite of what he's known for today. He was a nurse. He worked in nursing for 5 years before pursuing his career as a content creator. And boxer, he tried different roles online, but he found real fame when he started parodying Salt Bae, which earned him the nickname Salt PAPI. The name stuck, and the world now knows him by this alias. But surprisingly, his second wave of popularity didn't come from boxing. It came from his comedic fake running videos on TikTok. Yes, you heard that right. That was what convinced the organizers of influencer boxing events to give Salt PAPI a chance in the ring. He gladly accepted, with his first opponent being Halal Ham. At this point, Salt PAPI was really only hitting bags, every now and then casually, and had not really gotten into boxing, though this was an opportunity nobody would want to miss. Getting to fight on the Wasabi versus DJ undercard was a big deal. Salt PAPI took the deal and started training himself to get ready for the big day, but only got an actual coach about 2 weeks before the fight. When fight night came, what unfolded was nothing short of unexpected. Right before the fight started, some unidentified creature decided to intimidate Salt PAPI, and in its opinion, the best way to do that was by performing extremely racist rap. All you do is run on the spot. But tonight, you're about to get boxed and put in your place. Now you're either high as fuck or you're Chinese, 'cause your eyeballs look sunk into your face. See, you might have lost weight, but to me and everyone in here, that's not cool, bro. Everyone was shocked by this performance. Maybe the opponent thought it would break Nathaniel's spirit or put him in an uncomfortable position, but it actually motivated him. Because no one expected what came next. The audience expected two heavyweights, inexperienced social media stars, to just swing mindlessly. But Salt PAPI had something different to him. He looked like he'd been boxing for a while, and was surprisingly technical as a southpaw fighter. Clean combos, perfect counterattacks, and swagger. That night, Salt PAPI shocked the world with his skills and confidence. He looked like the biggest superstar in YouTube boxing. The fight went the distance, but Salt PAPI won the fight by a landslide through unanimous decision and sparked the start to greatness. Shortly after the Showstar event, Happy Punch Promotions signed Salt PAPI to their roster, which meant bigger and better opportunities. And boy, did it get so much bigger and better. Salt PAPI got on KSI's return card, Misfits 00, won against streamer Andy Warsey. The press conference itself showed us that Salt PAPI's energy was different. While Andy Warsey was talking smack constantly, PAPI thanked God and said, his hands will do the talking. Now screw Canada. I'm gonna bend you over and no one will fucking stop me. You understand me? I'm the underdog, bro. You don't even know what you stepped into, bro. You can talk as much as you want, but I let my hands do the talking in the room, like that. Although we soon found out, just like Salt PAPI himself, his hands were objects of few words. Just 16 seconds into the fight, Salt PAPI pulled a devastating combination and knocked out Andy Warsey. And 14 seconds after that, the fight was waved off and Salt PAPI took the win. This is still the fastest knockout in the history of YouTube boxing, And the fact that it happened at the first legendary Misfits event just makes everything better. Even if people expected Nathaniel to win, the way he won shocked everybody. Salt PAPI had a massive improvement due to him constantly training, and it showed suddenly. Salt PAPI was the rising star to look out for, with his fast and powerful hands. After a couple of victories and such spectacular ones, Salt PAPI became well known not only in Britain, but also back home in the Philippines. He was even invited as an honorary guest there. It's an incredible story, starting as a TikToker, moving into boxing, and now becoming a youth icon. Salt PAPI showed that truly anything is possible. On paper, his career trajectory sounds insane, but in reality it worked. Today, he shakes hands with the most important politicians in the Philippines, but Nathaniel didn't stop there, because his entire journey has been about transformation in every possible aspect. After his electrifying performance at Misfits 01, fans eagerly waited till Salt PAPI's next appearance. It was then announced his next fight would again be on a KSI undercard, except this time it was a whole other beast. His opponent was a professional MMA fighter, standing at 6'1", all chiseled and muscular. Josh Brockner going into this fight. People were still rooting for Salt PAPI, but his chances seemed slim because on paper, Josh had every stat going for him. The bell rang, and both fighters immediately looked great in the ring, feeling each other out, so PAPI, being a counterpuncher, was waiting for Josh to close the distance so he could go to work. Josh soon realized that every time he tried to pursue PAPI, he always answered back slowly. Nathaniel started breaking Josh mentally, laughing at his punching power. Salt PAPI kept taunting Josh, calling him slow, and seemed absolutely unfazed by his shots. Round 1 made the fight even more exciting, as the outcome could change at any point. Out of nowhere, 1 minute and 18 seconds into round 2, Josh misses his right. Salt PAPI had his lead foot on the outside, and threw a power left, dropping Josh, who now knew that standing back up would be to no avail. And he was out for the count, giving the Salt PAPI the astonishing KO. This outcome shocked everyone. Yes, there were people that expected PAPI to win, but no one expected such a stiff KO. But this shocking performance was good and bad, because many influencers are scared to fight him. The only way to lure them into fighting Salt PAPI is his fame. Before getting involved with YouTube boxing, Salt PAPI was obviously overweight. He himself talked about that problem. But motivation to break people's faces for money and bounce changed everything. With dedication and commitment, he focused on improving his physique. He changed his diet consistently, hit the gym, and followed a strict workout routine. Over time, Salt PAPI's hard work paid off, and he became leaner, stronger, and more muscular, becoming an inspiration to many who aspire to transform their own bodies. In a recent interview on the MMA Hour with Ariel Hawani, Salt PAPI revealed that over the last year, he's lost 30 pounds and is continuing to go down. This just proves how dangerous Salt PAPI is. He hasn't even reached his optimal weight, and fighters are still hesitant to get in the ring with him. Let's move to 2024. Salt PAPI's comeback was against a man who gained notoriety through wellness. It became clear after that clip that the primary purpose of this opponent was to hype up the fight to extremes. The humble Salt PAPI versus a man who decided to call himself Ferrari. By the way, Ferrari has been competing in MMA since 2018, with a current record of 6 wins and 5 losses. Not exactly impressive, but credit where it's due. He has experience behind his outrageous antics. Lies an equally wild fighting style, where he does whatever it takes to knock out his opponent. A fighter like this should, in theory, be easy to keep at bay with a jab and counter with a powerful straight. When they get reckless, occasionally adding a left hook, the real question was whether Salt PAPI had learned to use his jab, or was still relying purely on reaction and counter-punching from the start. Salt PAPI used his lead hand in ways most boxers use. A jab to measure distance, throw feints, read his opponent's behavior, and set the rhythm of his punches. His opponent, however, reacted nervously to PAPI's every move. Eventually, his nerves got the best of him, and he charged forward to fight the win. At one point, the Filipino realized he was dealing with a Neanderthal who had no concept of feints. So PAPI decided to simply press forward, cornering Ferrari, however. Amateur Atsu Ferrari managed to escape by clinching. Later, Ferrari attempted another sprint into the wind, but this time PAPI was ready. He countered with a precise left straight. While stepping back yet, Ferrari didn't stop, bulldozing forward and pushing PAPI to the ropes. Despite the visual audacity, the sequence dealt zero damage, making the moment even funnier. Then came what could only be described as a cartoonish wind-up. From Ferrari reminiscent of Looney Tune, even the blind in attendance could see it coming. Unsurprisingly, Salt PAPI easily ducked under the hook and escaped through the clinch. The Filipino continued to use feints, pretending to jab at Ferrari's head, causing him to raise his guard. PAPI followed with a jab to the body. However, Ferrari repeatedly charged forward with a flurry of wild hooks, managing to drive PAPI to the ropes again, but failing to land any significant blows. While Ferrari's comically bad strikes provided entertainment, these bursts of hook barrages also exposed a habit of Salt PAPI. His tendency to move straight back, a more skilled opponent could exploit to great effect flaw. At one point, Amaterasu charged forward again, and seemingly attempting Ramon Rain's signature spear. Of course, it dealt no damage. At the end of the day, it's WE move. But PAPI didn't even bother to use a basic sidestep, let alone a pivot later in the round. PAPI established the rhythm, with his lead hand tricking Ferrari into mimicking him by twitching his lead hand, without knowing why. While Ferrari was busy playing along, PAPI landed a heavy right hook to the body. Salt PAPI continued his feints, pretending to jab at the head to set up a body shot. However, even Ferrari had caught on to this trick by now, and responded with a barrage of hooks to PAPI's head. Ironically, it worked. Ferrari himself seemed surprised that he managed to counter PAPI, so much so that he dropped to his knees in a moment of gratitude, thanking God for the opportunity. Strangely, the referee counted it as a knockdown. Salt PAPI started adding variety to his fakes in the second round, using not just fake jabs to the head, but also to the body along with feigned hooks. His opponent, now visibly more nervous, hesitated to recklessly charge forward like before. At one point, Salt PAPI crouched slightly and launched himself with a hook to the head, as though hypnotizing his opponent with the sheer number of feints. Then, in a twist of irony, Salt decided to imitate his opponent's chaotic style by charging forward with punches. The difference, however, was that PAPI used his first two strikes as distractions, before landing a clean hook to the chin, while he connected well his opponent, realizing he was trapped against the ropes. Desperately scrambled to escape. The result, both fighters ended up clashing heads during the exchange, leaving them with cuts for their troubles. Later in the round, amateur Atsu Ferrari charged forward again, this time cleverly leading with his right elbow, block any counterpunch from PAPI. The tactic resulted in neither fighter landing any meaningful, but still ended with another head collision, earning Ferrari another point deduction. By the third round, Amaterasu Ferrari was completely exhausted. After a failed attempt to catch Salt PAPI off guard, he literally spun in circles and seemed more interested in inspecting the material of PAPI's shorts, up close. He followed this up by initiating yet another clinch and attempting to push PAPI out of the ring altogether, which earned him yet another point deduction. In essence, Ferrari's. entire strategy boiled down to running forward, getting punched in the head, and resorting to illegal tactics. When things went south by the end of the third round, his gas tank had run out, and he decided to quit on his stool before the fourth round began. Salt PAPI officially broke his losing streak with a technical knockout victory. Before the fight, I said that neutralizing this polished bull would be as simple as working behind a jab and throwing powerful counters. When he closed the distance, Salt PAPI, however, didn't bother with the jab. Still, it wasn't all bad. He showed significant improvement with his lead hand, using it to bait reactions, keep his opponent guessing, and set up feints for his left hook. Even without a jab, it was a straightforward fight for the Filipino, who executed his game plan in his own way this time. He clearly took the bout more seriously, treating it like a chess match rather than a brawl. However, there's always room for improvement, and Salt had plenty to work on while awaiting his next fight. Surprisingly, his return to the ring happened sooner than expected. Not in a Misfits boxing ring, but at the Social Knockout 3 event where his opponent was Dawood Savage. From the opening seconds, it was clear that Dawood Savage was nervous, and Salt, as an experienced boxer, immediately picked up on it. Rather than prolong the poor guy's suffering, PAPI pressed forward with a high guard, occasionally throwing jabs to wear him down, and bait a counterpunch opportunity. It was apparent that opponent's head was an open target, but PAPI, perhaps out of mercy, decided against scrambling the poor man's brain. Instead, a precise shot to the body dropped him for the first knockdown. After his opponent got back to his feet, PAPI stuck to the same strategy. Another shot to the liver resulted in another knockdown. To the Woods Savage's credit, he rose yet again only to fall the exact same. Same way moments later, a powerful body shot pinned him to the canvas for good. Perhaps opponent should have listened to his doctors and realized that salt is bad for the liver. For Salt PAPI, however, this marked his second knockout victory of the year. Technically, there isn't much to analyze in this fight, given that Dawood Savage's skill level was on par with Andy Worski, the guy with a Wii Sports stance. However, the difference in Salt PAPI's approach was notable. Against Worski, PAPI had mercilessly knocked him out so brutally that even Worski's future grandchildren might inherit the concussion. Against the Wood Savage, PAPI clearly understood the disparity in skill and calmly dismantled his opponent with minimal damage, ensuring the man didn't lose any more brain cells than necessary. This speaks volumes. Salt PAPI has grown more confident, not just in appearance but also in his mindset. By the end of the year, he aimed to raise the level of competition for his next fight, eager to prove that his progress wasn't just a fluke. Salt PAPI's next opponent was former Misfits champion King Kenny, known for his long reach and strong jab. This fight was a title eliminator to determine the #1 contender for the middleweight belt. Right from the first exchange, it was evident that the Filipino had taken this fight seriously and studied his opponent's style. Kenny loves to throw a long jab while stepping in, but this often leaves his chin exposed. In this instance, he also closed the distance too much, allowing PAPI to land an immediate counter. Kenny tried to clinch to slow Salt PAPI down, but that strategy would have only worked against the version of PAPI from a year ago. The new Salt PAPI quickly escaped the clinch and retaliated with a few strikes of his own. Shortly after, Kenny lazily stepped in with another long jab, his head high and his hands low, and ate a powerful straight punch to the face. Later in the fight, Kenny threw a strange, sluggish straight to the body that PAPI countered with a strong combination. Fighters often resort to such desperate, single shots to the body when they're frustrated, and this seemed no different. Salt PAPI tried to throw a light jab to distract Kenny, but Kenny responded with a good block that protected both his head and his body. PAPI's follow-up straight to the body landed on the block instead. In the clinch, Kenny was surprisingly active, clearly planning to use the clinch. As a key element of his strategy, PAPI stepped back, but got caught with a jab as Kenny pursued him, expecting a counter straight. Kenny stepped in deep with a low duck, hoping to push PAPI further toward the ropes. But instead, PAPI landed a punishing body hook that forced Kenny to abandon his plan and back off. Kenny's approach appeared designed to create moments of rest whenever PAPI hurt him, such as by clinching or retreating after absorbing a hard shot. In the third round, PAPI used feints to disguise a left hook, prompting Kenny to raise his guard high. However, Kenny's defense focused on protecting the sides of his head, while leaving the center open, as if serving his face to PAPI on a silver platter. PAPI throws a feint for a hook to set up a straight punch, which makes sense but unexpectedly. Kenny counters the Filipino with a jab. King Kenny outsmarted Salt PAPI, and it was likely at this moment that Salt decided to stick to the original game plan without any showboating. I'll explain the initial fight plan a bit later. Moments later, PAPI baited Kenny into relaxing by playing passive. Kenny dropped his hands slightly and began throwing sloppy, straight punches, leaving his chin exposed. Salt PAPI capitalized immediately, landing a massive punch to the jaw that shut down all of Kenny's motor functions. Despite the intriguing matchup, there's not much to praise about this fight, and that's entirely Kenny's fault. He fought as if he wanted to be knocked out, while on the defensive, Kenny showed decent fundamentals. He maintained good distance and kept his head protected. However, PAPI clearly knew Kenny preferred a defensive style, so he worked even more passively, retreating to the ropes to coax Kenny into attacking. When Kenny went on the offensive, things fell apart. His selection of combinations was questionable, and even when throwing single punches, he'd crouch awkwardly and lift his chin, leaving it completely unprotected. It was as if he was begging PAPI to land a clean shot and knock him out. Salt PAPI's entire strategy revolved around creating fake opportunities for Kenny to luring him into lower, losing his guard. One such moment sealed the fight with PAPI delivering a definitive knockout. But now PAPI is about to face the biggest challenge of his career, a fight against MMA legend and former UFC champion, Tony Ferguson. Once Tony was the most feared fighter in the division, holding the longest win streak in lightweight history. But now he's stepping into Nathaniel's territory. Who do you think will win, and how